Hello and welcome to this presentation about naming conventions. The intended audience for this is Year 11 students doing VCE computing and Year 12 students or Unit 3-4 students doing software development. So let's jump right in and learn about naming conventions. The study design says that we're to learn about the purpose and features of naming conventions for solution elements, and I'll unpack what solution elements are in just a minute. There says some variable interface controls, code structures, and we're learning about Hungarian notation, camel case, and snake case. And I've thrown in Pascal case for reasons that I will come to, even though they're not in the study design. Our learning intention is that students can identify Hungarian notation, camel case and snake case, and I guess also talk about what the purpose of them is, and there's our success criteria. So, what do we use these conventions for? Well, I think most obviously we use them for variables, but we use them for program names. So, our file names when we're building them, our function names within there, the interface controls. So, if we're giving an ID to a button, for instance, if we're writing in JavaScript. Variables is the one that leaps to my mind first. Table names, field names, and file names, which aren't necessarily program names, supporting files. So, I would say before we start talking about the conventions, I would encourage you to use to choose your words carefully when you are making your names. Follow the language-specific conventions. Now, I actually haven't always been very good about this, but later in the presentation, we'll see that you use particular naming conventions for particular things in your program. And this means that it increases your readability and also your support for other people working on that project. So they'll look and just go, oh, that must be a constant because of the way that it's named. That must be a function name, and so forth. So it adds to the readability. There's a little bit of overhead with you learning it, but follow the conventions. Use meaningful descriptive names. I was a shocker for this when I started coding. I'd call things like, wombat toes and other things because it amused me. And then when I came back to it 6 months later, I had no idea what the variable wombat toes meant. And I wasn't creating data dictionaries or anything. So using meaningful descriptive names is to your advantage. It actually doesn't say it on here, but it's in the wiki. Don't use single letters for things unless you're doing like X and Y coordinates or mathematical equations. If you mean weight, don't just use W, type the word weight, or sandwich weight, or whatever it means. Make it as meaningful as possible. There's no prizes for writing the briefest code. Avoid overly long identifiers. So you're striking a middle balance there. I think you can generally get your meaning across in 2 to 4 words, but that's just my opinion. And prioritize readability. You want it to, I was reading somewhere while I was creating this, that you're going to read variable names or names much more than you're going to write them. So concentrate on how quickly it can be understood by the person working with it. So let's start off with snake case. Snake case is all lowercase. The words are separated by underscores. And this one's pretty easy. And if you were doing this with me live, I'd get you to jump on to show and show me your name in snake case. And I think most people are going to get that. In the case where you've got a surname like mine with an apostrophe in it, you wouldn't put the apostrophe in. You could either drop it or you could replace it with an underscore. I would probably just drop it. Hungarian case is interesting. I actually have never used Hungarian case, and from what I read up about it, it's used in older languages. It's got a prefix indicating what the variable type is, and that actually strikes me as pretty sensible. For instance, let string username equals John. So it's actually a lot like Pascal case in that you've got uppercase letters at the start of the word, but the first one is in lowercase, so I guess it's like camel case, and it tells you what the what the data type is. So int user age equals 30, and bool what is it? Is active. See, I don't think that's very readable. I'd find another way to say that. I think it is good for your Boolean to have a descriptor of a state. So is active, is missing, is paid for. But hitting against that capital L, I think that decreases the usability, the readability. So then I'm saying your name in Hungarian case. Camel case. Camel case is my favourite case, as much as you can have a favourite case. Your first letter is lowercase, subsequent words are capitalised, and there's no spaces or underscores. You just run it all together. So username equals John Doe. And John Doe is there spelt in camel case. Total calculated price and is user authenticated equals true, which I actually think is much more readable than the Hungarian case in this case. And so you're going to give me a name there. Now, Pascal case is not mentioned explicitly in the study design, but we do talk about using them appropriately for the language, and it is used in some of the languages that I commonly use in class. So the first letter of each word is capitalised. There are no spaces or separators. It is common in C# and Java class names. And what was I going to say? And it also, I think, originated in a language called Pascal. And then you're going to give me a name in Pascal case. So they're the 4 cases that we're learning about. Now, how do we use them? There we go. So in Python, I confess that I have been writing everything in camel case, but I've learned something and I need to change my ways. Your variable and function names should be in snake case. So that makes sense, different to what I've been doing, but makes enough sense. Constants are in upper snake case. So that's a variable that won't ever change its value. So it's a non-variable variable. And that one's worth remembering because that's the same in all 3 of these languages. Class names, when you're creating using object-oriented features, are in Pascal case. And module and package names are in lowercase. So your kind of go-to case for most of your coding in Python is in fact snake case. When you do something like import random, that's going to be in lowercase. But most of the time I expect you're going to be using snake case. In PHP, my favourite of the server-side languages, variables are in camel case. Now that's good news for me because that's what I've been using. Functions are in snake case. You'll notice that all of these things in PHP actually start with a $sign. That's how you tell what a variable or a named object is. Classes are in Pascal case, which I didn't know. Class properties and methods are in camel case. Constants are also in upper snake case. So that's the same as in Python. Now, in JavaScript, variables, functions, and methods are in camel case. Well, that's good for me because I love camel case. So variables, functions, and methods. Classes and constructors are in Pascal case. Constants are in upper snake case, and that's the 3rd time we've seen that convention in action that way. So, this is part 1. This one's pretty easy. I'll stop after each one so you can lock it in your brain which one's being used. So which one is that? Well, that's camel case. Total price amount is snake case. Student record is Pascal case. String first name is Hungarian case. That is upper snake case. And that is Hungarian again because you can see the data type there at the start. Now, this one, and number. Now, this is something of a trick question. The best answer for this is that could be either lowercase or it could be camel case. We actually can't tell just from that one example in 7, so that'll be the best answer. I suspect some people will answer lowercase and some will answer camel, but only a couple of people will answer that it could be either. So, what case should you use? So, let's have a look. A variable in JavaScript, class name in JavaScript. Now, I think in JavaScript, I don't even know, I'm going to have a look now. So I'm going to go over to the wiki, I'm going to look in JavaScript, and I want to know that a variable name is going to be camel case, and a class name is going to be Pascal. So that's camel and Pascal. Class name in PHP, and constant. Now, constant's going to be upper snake case, I remember that. Class name in PHP, I'm going to guess that it's Pascal, but let's have a look. Class name in PHP. So, function names, variable names, class names, Pascal. So that's a good guess by me. User login count, that is a weird question, so I'm going to actually pause and fix that. Okay, let's jump back into it. I don't know why I had that there. I obviously had a bit of a brain fade. A variable in Python, now remember this is snake case, and a function name in Python, well, I'm going to have to look that up. I'm hoping it's a camel case. It's my favourite. I'd like it if that were the answer. So let's have a look in Python. So function name in Python, and it says function name is snake case. Oh well, I was wrong. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope you found that useful. There is more information in the wiki. I think it's probably worth bookmarking these pages for the language that you're using on particular projects, just so that you can quickly reference what type you're meant to use. And I hope you got something useful out of this presentation.